Okay, so we are, this session is about resolutions that has been passed in City Council. I just wanted to mention a little bit of the history, the recent history, because I know Charlie has another longer history about resolutions. When Kenya Serrano visited us 4 years ago, she was in Washington, and then she went to different cities around the country, and she came to the Bay Area, and we set up a meeting with her and Gail McLaughlin in Richmond, who was the mayor and very supportive of the Cuban Five and in solidarity with Cuba. And so in that meeting, the idea came up about passing a resolution, because Richmond also passed a resolution before about the visits from the wife of the Cuban Five. It was passed by the Richmond City Council. So we brought it up to Richmond, and a very active group of, including Malia, of people who live in Richmond, started the process of passing a resolution in Richmond. And so that passed, was approved by all the city council, and then that got other people excited from the Bay Area. And we used the same format of the first resolution against the blockade. And we went to other cities in the Bay Area. So after that, it passed in Oakland, it passed in Berkeley, and then Sacramento was a little different, because union people from Sacramento took it to the city council in Sacramento, and also was approved unanimously. And you know, city council, we can say is symbolic, because it doesn't change anything, but what it shows is behind every single city council, there are a number of people that learn about what happened in Cuba, what is going on with the blockade. Plus, I mean, you educate the city council people about what is going on, and at the same time, the city council of each city represents thousands of other people. So if we continue with this exciting project, we know our friends are very appreciative of every single resolution that is passed in different cities, just because of that. I mean, and so far, we have 9 has passed so far. Like I said, Richmond, Berkeley, Oakland, and Sacramento, and California. Then we have one in Brookline. Peter, can you come over?
Sure.
Brooklyn, Massachusetts, Brookline, Minneapolis, of course, Minnesota, Hartford, Connecticut, Helena, Montana, and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So we're trying to invite people that have that experience in each city where those resolutions were passed, so they can explain the process, how did that happen, how did they did it, and hopefully we can have a conversation after. We have 5 minutes presentation of each person, and after that we can talk more about the possibility of continue this work. Is one of the projects that many members of the NNOC have taken on, so we can learn from each other and keep working in that direction. So with that, I wanted to first invite Marcy Shapiro to talk about how they passed the resolution here in New York.
Thank you. I'm actually going to talk about 3 resolutions. I'm a member of the Minnesota-Cuba Committee. Since I'm in Minneapolis, I think I should announce that. So the first resolution that we ever passed in Minnesota was in, excuse me, I have allergies today, so if my voice goes, I'll just keep going. Was in 2008, and our state legislature passed a resolution basically opposing the blockade and also opposing the travel ban. And it was put forth by 2 legislators who had gone to Cuba several times and were in the Senate was Sandy Pappas, and in the House was Phyllis Kahn, and they both had gone to Cuba several times and were saw themselves as Cuban solidarity people, and so they put forth this resolution, and at that time we were able to do it because our legislature was Democratic, and so they were basically willing to support it, and so we passed that. And then we tried again about a year ago, but our legislature is now all Republican, and we have an author, but we can't get anywhere with it to repass a resolution. So we'll see what happens after November if we can put forth another state resolution. And then we've had a resolution in Minneapolis, and that one was probably the easiest resolution ever because in the last election, Minneapolis has a new city council, and it's probably as progressive as any city council in the country. And basically the author, who was the vice president of the council, put forth the resolution. It passed unanimously. There was really no lobbying, it didn't take anything basically to pass. We gave them the information, and then they developed the resolution using their format, and it passed in the last year. Philippe Cunningham, who was here last night, I have never seen Philippe in any Cuba things, and what that says to me is he's a city council member, a newly elected city council member, is that he learned something out of hearing the discussion about the resolution and was enthusiastic about it. And I talked to him a little bit last night. He's very, he used the words, I want to have solidarity with Cuba. So that was a really positive thing in terms of him getting educated by the introduction of the resolution. And the third resolution that we're in the process of putting forth now is in the city of St. Paul. That resolution is taking more time. And I would say that in Minneapolis it was passed unanimously by the city council and signed by the mayor, who supported it as well. In St. Paul, we're just now in the lobbying process, and it is taking lobbying in St. Paul. We have 2 authors in St. Paul in the city council, and we've also had discussions with the mayor's office. And our hope is with the mayor's office that if the resolution will not only talk about the blockade and travel ban, but also about initiating a sister city relationship with a city in Cuba. I wanted to just talk about the resolution in St. Paul because it's different than the one in Minneapolis. The one in Minneapolis was basically about the blockade and the travel ban. The one in St. Paul talks about the history of the city of St. Paul with Cuba, which goes back to 1898. And in 1898, the African American community in St. Paul was very enthusiastic about supporting Afro-Cubans in their opposition to the U.S. in the Spanish-American War. And we put on operas in St. Paul by the African American community, and that continued for years in St. Paul, that there was that relationship to the African American community in St. Paul. There are other kinds of, our resolution is really long in St. Paul because it lists all the kind of relationships that have been built up with St. Paul and Cuba, both in the past and currently. And I wanted to invite anybody who's staying here until Monday. On Monday afternoon, for Secretary Fraga is going to go to the St. Paul City Hall and visit with one of the authors of the resolution, but he's also going to go on a tour of the City Hall and visit a statue of Jose Marti that is in the St. Paul City Hall. It's a beautiful statue. Other members of the Cuban embassy in the past have come and visited the statue. And so if anybody is going to be here in this group on Monday, let me know. And we will arrange to have you come over to the St. Paul City Hall and go on the tour and see the statue of Jose Marti. So we're very positive about the resolution passing in St. Paul. It's just taking time to make sure we have all the people on board to pass it and for the mayor to sign it. So I think in both resolutions it'll be an opportunity for us to educate people in Minneapolis and St. Paul about Cuba and the blockade and the travel ban. So thank you.
And I think that is more coming. We wanted to have 20, 30, 40 resolutions as and I think it's possible. So I'm going to go next to Peter from Brookline. Peter, as soon as the resolution starts passing, was very interested and started asking, if we have the language, some of the language, and I know it was very different than the others, so I want you to explain the process.
Okay, first of all, Brookline is an independent town surrounded on three sides by Boston. And the form of government in Brookline is not city council, it's town meeting, traditional town meeting. So it's a very different process. Some similarities makes it more difficult. In some ways makes it easier in other ways. But let me make some general points about it for your edification, and I think I'll go off in a little bit different direction. The first thing is that I was incredibly excited to do it and have the same kind of an enthusiasm and conversion experience that Ben Serino's brigade used to have. People who've done this get very excited by it. And one of the things about the people who've done this is that we're interested and willing and excited to share our experience with those of you who want to do this kind of thing. The second thing is 2 years ago at an NOC meeting in Chicago, I had the pleasure of meeting Baruch, who helped shepherd the proposal through Richmond, the first one. Actually, the Brookline proposal was the one that made this a national effort, having been in the Bay Area up until then. And we got excited talking about all the different kinds of possibilities that there were. And we wrote an article that was published by NOCLA, and you can find that article at nacla.org. It's called Ending the Embargo on Cuba at the Grassroots. Rita and I co-authored that. If you're interested, do look it up and take a look at that. Local resolutions have been on the NNOC agenda for 2 to 3 years, even longer now. And it's no wonder. It really reinforces the fact that there's majority support for ending the embargo. It's a failed policy. And one of the interesting things is one of the reasons that in the polls that it shows such an overwhelming majority against the embargo is that there's an unusual combination. I mean, depending on how well you're educated in sort of like Cuba politics in the U.S., but there's actually a sort of conservative right wing as well as a kind of left NNOC and a broad-based movement against the embargo. So, and if you look at organizations like Engage Cuba, the leading people against the embargo in that broad-based coalition, they're all Republicans. So this gives you an opportunity to really think about what your approach might be for getting local resolutions passed. And the main thing I wanted to emphasize in this presentation is that, first of all, not only does it help the movement, not only does it help the effort to end the blockade, but this is good for you. It's good for your local Cuba Support Committee, because an effort to get a local resolution passed complements just about any other strategy that you have in your program. I mean, one of the things that you'll see is that all the resolutions have been different. That's because we can both learn from each other as we pass those local resolutions, and you learn how to customize and deal with. I mean, there's a broad base of people you'll work with. There'll be allies, there'll be strategic alliances, depending on your interest in dealing with Republicans and the right wings. There could even be, a whole range of tactical alliances. This is up to you to sort of decide how you want to approach it. But in terms of building your alliances, building your programs, supplementing your arts and culture, as well as dealing with in the important political arena, local resolutions are one of the key resources that you have at your disposal for figuring out what your program year should look like. And like I said, I can certainly speak for myself. I can speak a little bit for Rita. I can tell you that our experience in doing this makes us want to be very helpful for any of you who are interested in this. So please take a look at the joint article, and please, if you're at all interested, seek me out. I'll be more than happy to help you and give you the benefit of sort of my experience and what I've come up with in talking with other people who've done this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that if you can see, like, the experience of everybody has been different, and we have copies of those resolutions in our communities. So if anybody, as we move forward and we have questions, if anybody's interested, it's not something really, really hard to do. It just takes some time. And I think we can all do it if we wanted to do it. Okay, so I'm gonna go to Lisa now because I think Charlie will speak not in a particular resolution, but about other ideas that he has. So let's introduce Lisa Valenti, that we all know very well, from Pittsburgh. She's waiting for us. Hey, Lisa.
Hi, everybody. Thanks. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Sorry to be on Skype instead of in person, but very, very glad to be with you. I wanted to make a proposal. I wanted to make a proposal that the NNOC consider creating an umbrella committee to assist in collecting resolutions under the idea of that the resolutions show a solidarity, that we're a solidarity city with the idea of normalization of relations with Cuba. Resolutions are very simple, and they're a great tool because they serve many purposes. They serve not once as for your local legislature. They give your legislator an idea that this is very popular with the public and acceptable to the public. So it encourages legislators to be more progressive on Cuba. We have managed to take our senator, our representative to Cuba. We have just a $52,000 grant to coordinate an art show. Many of you know that we did a box gum bridge bringing in Cuban kids, and that was through a sports organization, not through a Cuba Solidarity organization. When you have your city committed to the idea that the blockade of Cuba is long overdue to be changed, you can use that with very mainstream people because almost everybody thinks that. And when you have a resolution in hand, it speaks for the public. And one person can get a resolution. You can go to your city council and go to each office until you find one person who will support your resolution. And once you have a commitment from one person on your city council or in your city government, they will do the work to get the support of the rest of their colleagues. And unless you live in an area that has a profound Cuban American community, there is generally no problem at all in proceeding with a resolution, especially if it's locally based in support of student exchanges, whatever. But you can make it simple or hard, whatever you want to do. In Pittsburgh, we decided to concentrate on two areas which we consider politically critical to educating the public and to encouraging and giving and figuring out a next step as to where we're going to push our legislators. One, we wanted to concentrate on Helms-Burton law because that has to be dismantled. And now the circumstances under which the Helms-Burton law originally came into being in 1996 have changed. So we could potentially begin to pull a brick out of Helms-Burton, start to come up its feet, but you have to get your legislators to propose that. We're working on what we're going to do with that. But first of all, we wanted people to know that the Helms-Burton is an impediment to the change of normalization of relations with Cuba. Secondly, maybe first, is the absolute defense of the Cuban embassy. And to us, that is the most important thing right now, is making sure that people understand the war against Cuba and what is happening with the embassy. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, because it says I have a little sign on my Skype saying sound stopped. All right. Defense of the embassy and the fact that the U.S. is using the situation in Cuba to make it difficult for the embassy in Washington to function properly has to be changed. And we have to defend and make sure the embassy is able to perform in all its diplomatic duties and all its consular duties. So we added that into our resolution that because I think that's the most important step that we have managed to achieve is the opening of the embassy. And so they can't just be paper embassies. We have to make them and allow them to function. So we've added that into the resolution and highlighted that in our resolution. We also highlighted agricultural trade, varieties of things, but that was just stuff that we're doing here. The point I want to make is anybody can get a resolution. If you go down to local city council, they're not educated on the issue of Cuba. And as a constituent of theirs, if you give them and do the work, like we'd like to pass this resolution in support of Cuba because this is a stupid policy, you won't find very many people opposed to it. And so it's not labor intensive in that way. You don't need to have 500 people out in the street. A few dedicated people can get this done, and you can sometimes get it done over the telephone. So I feel we, as created an umbrella within the National Network of Cuba, a committee to create a concept of solidarity cities. We know sanctuary cities were very popular. We should be able to get resolutions out of every single sanctuary city in support of normalizing relations with Cuba. And if we had a collective, cooperative group, if I was working with the people on this panel, we could strategize how to help people achieve these goals and build up a portfolio that is demonstrative to legislators that the public supports the normalization of relations. Let's see what else I want to say about that. It's a proof of constituency. So I wanted to do that. Let's see what's not labor intensive. It's also really easy. It's really important that we capture institutional support. As individuals, we all have our feelings. But when you capture a city to speak for you, or you capture a university to make a resolution, or you capture a sports club, every single person, every institution that we get to speak out on this policy is important. Rotary clubs want to speak out on this policy. Churches want to speak out, and they have. I mean, this is where I think Pastors for Peace has given us the model to do this local work in every institution and every club. In who can't, I'm talking the Humane Society. I think everybody can take a stand on that. We need to just record it, capture it, and report it. And I think that's all I'll say for right now, and I'll, take if anybody wants to ask me.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Lisa. When we finish, you stay there, okay? When we finish.
Yes, I'm staying.
Okay.
Thank you. I love you all.
I love you too. So the next person is Charlie Serrano from Chicago, and he's going to talk about some history and some ideas that he has.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here. This is not my normal voice. My father was a socialist. I didn't know anything else he was other than being a father, but he was a socialist because he talked so much about it. You would always say that the majority of the people are socialists. And when I grew up and was able to challenge that, I told him, because the majority of the people you talk to are only socialists. So you don't get out of that area. He went to Puerto Rico, and he joined Marty Bras' party in Puerto Rico, and he would say the same thing. So as radical as I was, I became Republican, just not to be what he was. But this is my point with that. Every single time I give an example, and I was glad to pass by Beloit, Wisconsin, because I always tell people, Mr. and Mrs. Smith from Beloit, Wisconsin do not know there is an embargo. And the problem we have is that the majority of the people in the United States do not know that there's embargo. How we frame that for them so they would be pissed off enough that there is an embargo still on Cuba that somewhat affects them is what we need to force these members of Congress. We need to focus on that every single activity we do in the next 24 months is focused to make congressional delegations from states and from the large cities to support every single piece of legislation that there is going through the Capitol in favor of lifting the embargo, no matter how we're chipping away at this. I want to thank Lisa, who was my godmother. Some 18 years ago, I became a member of the NNOC. And unlike some of you, some people didn't want me to be a member of the NNOC. So she advocated, and so did my comrades from Chicago. So thank you, Lisa Valenti. It's been a struggle for all of us in trying to lift this embargo, because that is what we're here for. I'm very glad that Peter made some very important points, so I won't repeat those. Since you all took notes, you don't need me to repeat that. But in 1996, we passed the first House resolution in the state of Illinois for the lifting of the embargo for humanitarian reasons, to be able to get our delegation. I had meetings. I remember having meetings even with Dennis Hastert at one time when he was the Speaker of the House, and he actually told us, put pressure on us. I went over to the Republican convention in San Diego. I remember that clearly. We met with folks. That's how we got some Republican congressional members to support this, including some of the folks from Arkansas. Some people from Arkansas that supported these bills. I remember when Jeff Flake came into the congressional delegation of Arizona, we went after him because we knew a little bit about him. And David Rodriguez and myself from Chicago, we talked to him, and he joined us in an event. I don't know if you guys remember this, but sometime in Tampa we had an event, and also one in Miami, and Jeff Flake went to both of them. It is sad that he's leaving the Senate because he has been a great supporter of that. I think a couple of points that Lisa and Peter touched on that I want to mention is that she's very true. It is very easy to do this. Don't be afraid of doing a resolution in any city council, township, or state, because we're of the world. And I remember the congressman from there, he said, "Look, I don't care about anything but pigs." And I told him, I said, "Yeah, well then, we would like to buy more pigs in Cuba, from you, if you would pass that. Well, if that's what you're talking about, just write it up for me and I'll do that. And we'll pass that." And that's as easy as that. When she says it's easy, it is easy. And this is why I would like to have a campaign, and I would like to sign on, Lisa, on this committee that you're talking about, because I believe, I was talking to Craig, and I've been talking to him since last year about this stuff, when we were in Seattle, that we should identify 25 of the top cities in the country, all the way from New York to Nashville and Memphis, that have populations over 650,000, because they have significant number of congressional members. See, I'm focused, 25 years as a lobbyist, and I'm focused on getting members. And let me ask you for a big favor. Get Fraga to go to your city and meet your congressman. Or go to DC when Fraga will accompany you and take him to meet your congress member. He needs this. This is the way we secure votes. I'm focused on states, so these are 25 cities. And then we have the 30 top states in the United States with populations have 4 or more congressmen, from California that has 53 to Iowa that has 4. So if we focus on getting, a 24-month or 18-month, process to get all of these cities and all of these states with resolution. I mean, we'll take anything that comes along on this trip, but that the focus is focused on congressional members, that we need their votes. The idea again, and the focus isn't doing that in getting some of these congressional packages of legislation passed. So content is really not important. To every single location, you have unique content in your resolutions. There's a general thing, but just some of the goody stuff that Mr. and Mrs. Smith from Beloit, Wisconsin isn't going to say no to. And those are very important. The purpose of this has multiple, I know you want to go to lunch, give me a couple more minutes. look, it has multiple effects. You know, you pass a resolution, it gets on the news, doesn't it? It gets on the news. You could go into your public access television stations, which is for free, that Comcast and all these cable people need to give you time. Create a little program, a little interview, have them interview you. Why are you passing this resolution? It creates all of this discussion, awareness in the newspapers, identifying your local areas or your local groups, those of you that are members and member organizations, folks that will speak on issues. Call up Braga, get him an email, tell him what's the issue, what am I going to talk about, or else we should develop in that committee, Lisa and Peter, things that they can talk about that are updated pieces of legislation that are in process. It's got a couple of them, Braga, we just need 4 or 5 more votes in the Senate to pass. So, and you are able to, people are able to identify that there are people that support, that are the pro-Cuba leadership. The more the merrier is why I propose 25 cities and 30 states to focus on, but everything is added. And because our focus is to change laws permanently. You see, when they codified, it was in 94, 96, when they codified, 96, when they codified this stuff, you know, now we have turned into lobbyists, and a lot of us don't like that. So let's call it something else, legislative advocates, you know, something like advocacy, because some of you guys, you know, get the itchy-beachies when you are called a lobbyist. I don't. I'm happy and proud. I love you all. It was a good trip from Chicago up here. I love Minneapolis. Let's get all these resolutions done.
One thing I wanted to say, you know, when we just started last night and Gary read a resolution, not a resolution, a letter from Congressman Tom Emmer, and, you know, it sounded like a really progressive congressperson, and, you know, he talked about isolation, and he talked about, you know, I don't know if he was solidarity, but whatever he talked about. And I don't know if all of you know that Tom Emmer is a very, very conservative congressman. And so he's from a district outside of Minneapolis, out of the metro area. And so I just want to support what you said, because I think it's really important that you can get support from both people from both parties.
I'm sorry, I can't raise my hand, but could I just say 2 things, if you'll indulge me? The purpose all legislators give a damn about is pacifying their constituents. If you go into a city council and you say, for my representative, I want you to do this, generally, they'll give you dog day, they'll give you maple syrup day, they'll give you anything you want because it's no skin off their teeth. They don't think if they pass a resolution on Cuba that it's going to have any import. Therefore, they'll do it. And they'll do it and get you off their back. I'm just not a handful of them. And I go in and I'm mainstream, and it's not difficult to talk these guys because they don't want to do it with me. They pass it on to their secretary and say, get it done.
Thank you. So we ended the panel, but we would like to know if people have questions.
I'm wondering if any of you encountered any pressure to insert language that you might have been uncomfortable with, that sort of suggested that we should end the embargo in order to teach Cubans about our wonderful way of life and our democracy and fairness and all that. Did anybody encounter any pressure, and how did you handle it if you did?
No, that's a good question, but no. As long as you do good things, I remember the first one in Illinois we were very specific on for humanitarian reasons. The second one was for normalization of relations. And then we had these talking points like no other country in the whole of Latin America, every single country in Latin America has normal relations except Cuba. This is stupid. You know, and it's easy for people to say, yes, that is stupid. You don't have to talk about their communist country, you don't have to talk about anything, you know, that will set off. Some of our greatest supporters are ultra-conservative folks. Is that true, Fraga? Ultra-conservative because they think that Americans, nobody should eliminate their freedom to travel, to trade, to negotiate. The state of Illinois was very radical. It was one of the first to sell wheat. I was involved in that to Russia and breaking that embargo. So it isn't, I don't find nothing at all negative. Content is very important for your state. Make it unique, find out what your state does, what you do, the things. A lot of you states have a lot of schools or medical schools to trade for medicine and stuff like that. Things like Cuba has this kind of medicine. They have these kind of anti-cancer medicines. I don't want to keep on talking. Stuff like that.
Yeah, I want to respond to that. One of the things that politicians are is they like to have they like to be involved. They don't just want to, rubber stamp something. So this whole political process, I wouldn't. They like to negotiate around certain things. They have suggestions. It's not necessarily antagonistic. But one of the things that happens, and one of the things you should look forward to, in fact, is that more and more people, whether it be your partners who are going to be involved, or subcommittees of the city council, or a town meeting, but they'll have suggestions. They'll want to emphasize one thing or another, and that what you end up with can end up looking a little bit different. And that's a good thing. I don't think there's anyone antagonistic, particularly in the way that you pointed out, but you get a broader buy-in. And part of what you've done, too, is not only just get a resolution passed, but you're involved in a process of community political education. Like several people have pointed out, a lot of people don't even know that there is an embargo. So you're educating people about the embargo and why it's important to end, and people are going to want to have some give and take. And that's something you should look forward to.
Yes, I appreciate your enthusiasm, your intention, your intensity, and your knowledgeability. In recent years in this country, the largest blocking constituency are the indifferent. And I have like the interest in Cuba. In Minnesota schools, they don't even teach anything about Canadian history, and the students of the schools here don't even know the provinces in Canada. And we're looking at this issue of travel to Cuba. They want to try another country, Canada, and up there, Canadians are quite a bit more knowledgeable about America and Cuba. The Canadians and a lot of the Hispanics want to meet at the pass. How do you address this issue of indifference? And it also saturates a lot of political communities too.
You make it simple. You make it simple.
You make it, well, that's a good idea.
You make it simple,
Yeah,
stupid.
KISS is a good idea.
Yeah.
One of the things about local resolution is it gives you another opportunity to do that. That's a general question you ask. How does one deal with, educating people about Cuba? We can have extended discussions about this. The fact is, if you're considering doing a local resolution, one of the things you want to do is you want to have some op-ed article. You want to have some articles. If you've got a cable station or a news station, it's an opportunity to add to that. And that's why I say that one of the things that's really impressive about local resolutions is that they supplement any other program that you may have on your agenda. So that if one of your agenda items with your group is how do you educate people about Cuba, having a local resolution on your agenda is one of the ways to deal with that.
Yes.
I think it's true about keeping it simple. One thing is we really got to keep an eye on the goal, and the goal, from my point of view anyway, is that what we want to come out of this is with 50, 60, 75 resolutions. That will have an impact. That is something, and that is part of, piggybacking off the fact that the great majority of people in the United States are against the blockade. So it really doesn't matter. If there is an educational component, that's a plus. I know when we did it in Oakland, it was really funny. The representative who was pushing it in there, I was like, he seemed, particularly progressive, but he was on his way down to Cuba in a few weeks. He wanted to push it so he could go down there and brag about it. Okay, let's make a deal. So we got the resolution passed. So whatever it takes, I think. And I'm from the school of don't try to, say, long live the revolution in the wording. Just get it done on the basic issue of human rights. And that's what you do it on. But the big thing is out of this, if we can get a lot of people to sort of like, what will it take to get us through? And I think there's two ingredients. One is you've got to find that guy, that woman, legislator who's in there who will help push it. But you need somebody like in this room, like what Peter did, where you're going to drive it. It doesn't need a whole committee. It's like one person, I'm going to drive this through. And have that one contact. That in itself can be the formula. Anyway.
Thank you. Any other question or comment? If not, we're gonna break.
Can we do what Lisa was saying, officially have a committee or officially do this process to have a number of cities, a number of states in the next 24 months as a goal? Well, I don't know what would be the process for
No,
that.
thank you for the idea. I think it's a really good idea that we undertake forming a committee that would officially, a subcommittee of the NNOC, a committee of the NNOC that will work with local organizations in order to pass resolutions. Is that worded properly? So there is that acceptable to you, Lisa?
Oh, yes. No, that's great. I just want to be under an umbrella working with other people.
Okay.
Just home down, I could do a lot of this work in conversations, conference calls. I can call people.
Okay, I think.
So that's purple.
Thank you. I think we need to move on because we're really late already. But
Okay.
what do we?
I mean, I don't know.
motion.
That's a motion, right?
Right, so the motion is that we set up an umbrella subcommittee of the NNOC to work on garnering support in local, city, and state legislative bodies. Is there a second?
Second motion.
Any discussion on the motion? Any further
Can we make sure
discussion?
that before we leave, that we meet to sort of set those goals? Because a committee is a committee, a project has goals that a certain period of time, that those of us that are interested in joining that committee, and then that we give more language,
Right,
just create
right,
a
but I
committee.
mean, initially, this is
Yeah.
what the idea is that, and there will be work on it. But there is a motion on the floor, it's been seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Is somebody count the votes? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion carries. And from what I counted, it was 24 in favor, 3 opposed, and no abstentions.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. So,